Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Theo. I'm from Veolia Water Technologies, Singapore. I'm the Asia Pacific Market Manager for Pharma and Cosmetic Market in Veolia Water Technologies. And again, a warm welcome for you to join our webinar today. And together with me and my colleagues from UK is Ranj. He's one of the veterans in our organizations, have with us more than 25 years, and he's based in UK, and he's currently responsible for market activities for pharmaceutical and cosmetic industry, and providing support to the many VWT business units around the world. My presentations or our introductions to the pharmaceuticals and product updates in Australia. This year, there are three major activities in Australia, started by AstraZeneca to invest Australia 200 million in Sydney, followed by Luina Bio, a local biologics company, to expand their facilities domestically. And lastly, the Seqirus will build a new world-class biotech manufacturing facilities in Australia and to supply the influenza vaccines to Australia and the world. And Australia is one of the key players in the biological markets, which is the next generation of pharmaceutical drugs manufacturing process. And these are the important biologic manufacturing facilities in South Hemisphere. We will now look into the local R&D effort by the University of Queensland and CLS. University of Queensland and CSL are developing a vaccine for COVID-19. If the vaccine is proven to be safe and effective and is approved for use, it will be available in Australia as part of the Australian government's COVID-19 vaccine and treatment strategy. The vaccine doses purchased by the Australian government will be manufactured locally at CSL biologic facilities in Broadmeadows, in Victoria State. The vaccine is one of the 9 vaccines supported by CEPI, which is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovative, a global partnership to accelerate vaccine development. If we look into the vaccine export for both Australian and New Zealand market, we'll see that there's a deficit of the vaccines in Australia market, meaning that the import value is higher than export volume. So if you look into the details, Australia export most the vaccines to the United States of America, followed by China, European, and rest of the Asia countries. I look into the challenges in the manufacturing of pharmaceutical product. I'd like to categorize it into 3 sectors. Number 1, the disruption and the business continuity. Take example, the COVID-19 pandemic and how pharmaceutical manufacturing overcome it. And it's followed by a sustainability and operations efficiency, how we achieve a better sustainability and a better OPEX for our operations. And the last topic will be the digitalizations and Pharma 4.0. Let's look into the entire techno map that valued by Veolia. The box that's highlighted in the red colors are the offer from us to the pharmaceutical industry. It started off from the water treatment facilities, the mobile treatments processes, water supply to the processed water, utility feed water. We call it black utilities. We're supporting the utility production as well as hospital and retail pharmacy through cooling towers services as well. On top of that, we do have the wastewater treatment technologies that are supporting the pharmaceutical manufacturers to meet the local regulations and requirements. By looking into the sustainability options, we will promote the reuse of the wastewater or reclaim of the wastewater into the non-critical processes such as black utilities, irrigations, toilet flushing, general washing, so on and so forth. And how Veolia can provide valuable solution to you and become your strategic partner to overcome these challenges. We have the worst solution roadmap for you, but today we will focus on mobile water services, audit program, standard solutions and engineered system, and lastly, our Aqua Vista. Let's look into the mobile water services now. Mobile water services are modular and flexible arrangement for you. The system is mounted on a trailer, skid, or containerized and contain our mobile treatment system. We have a wide range of traditional and new water treatment technologies supplying to our customer for the emergency use, a planned preventive maintenance, as well as a multi-year contract. And for the emergency wise, our mobile water services could act as the alternative supply, either for your black utilities or critical utilities. Again, I'll take an example, and my colleague Ranj will present you one of the successful references we have for our mobile water solutions Europe. Ranj, the floor is over you.
Thank you, Theo. Yes, so this was a customer in Europe which had an existing system on site, an aging system which had some issues with microbiological contamination. So they contacted us and we offered our mobile Orion unit, which is a softening RO EDI system for purified water production. And the advantage of this unit was that it is hot water sanitizable, which helped mitigate the issues with microbial contamination. So we provided the mobile Orion unit, which, as I say, overcame this issue. And the other benefits of this unit to the customer was that they did not have to lay out any capital costs as they were hiring it on a fixed term contract with the ability to maybe extend that on a month-by-month basis. Delivery time normally for something like this unit, you could be delivery time could be up to 20 weeks if you had purchased the unit. Well, we could deploy the unit or the asset onto site within a week or two and set it all up, plus the validation for the unit as well, in order to provide a validated system for purified water. The other advantage to the customer was if they had to wait for a new unit, there was no loss or risk to production because you have this mobile unit on site, and it comes complete with service backup to ensure optimum performance and uptime for the customer. So it was a perfect solution for them, really, in this particular case. Okay, hand back to you, Theo.
So the next ones that we would like to highlight to you is the screen audit. And this screen audit is not the conventional audits for you, but it's a global audits, water audits package for you. And we built the 4 major pillars and outcomes within these screen audit packages, namely the production site water footprint. It's based on ISO 14046 and the Water Resource Institute. Secondly, we'll give you the production site water cycle and water management. It means that we will not only give you the volumetric review of the needs of each production facilities, but as well as we look into the quality of the water produced in each segment within your production facilities. Started from the cooling tower, chiller, boiler, to the production raw material, water for stations, cleaning, packaging, filling, and water for domestic, like for example, laboratory water, canteen, irrigations, and admin building. On top of that, we'll review the wastewater treatment capabilities to ensure that the discharge of the wastewater treatment plant will meet the local regulations and requirements. And with the Screen Global Audit Program, we'll give the KPIs to all the production facilities of our system. And we will examine the risk and provide you with solutions to overcome the risk itself. So, Ranj, you would like to explain further to our audience about some of our global audit programs that will be done in the past.
Yeah, thank you, Tio. Yeah, we did a screen audit on a global pharmaceutical company in Puerto Rico last year, where the customer invited us over to have a look at their site. And as the diagram that's on your screen there, we did a sort of a complete water balance across the whole site. So from processed water through to utilities, production, domestic and wastewater side. And we worked through each section to identify water coming in, water going to drain, water going to for process use or production use or utilities. And some of the findings were quite interesting, where we couldn't measure some of the water going in certain areas because they didn't have the necessary instruments, for instance. So there was some recommendation on maybe installing a few more instruments so they can better assess their water footprint on site. There were the obvious things like recycling or recovery of water in certain areas, and also maybe better wastewater treatment for the chemical side of it to make the system more efficiencies. So there was a complete program and a complete report produced for the customer and recommendations. So this is something we can do where we visit site and go through the whole site with the customer to do the screen water audit. Thanks, yeah.
All right, the floor is you on the standard products introductions.
Okay, so Tio's just putting up a complete compendial system flow schematic, which we're going to look at today. Just in terms of production, I mean, if we look at production of purified water for making your products, the risk is managing the product, really. What we don't want is a water treatment system to be out of spec or for one reason or another to break down, so you're not making production, because that's the key for any of our customers. I remember going a number of years ago to a site in Denmark where we asked the customer, you know, what's the cost to you if the water treatment system is not running? And they've obviously done their homework, and one of the guys piped up and says, you know, 16,000 euros per minute is the loss to them if that water treatment system is not running. So that's almost just under €1 million an hour. So it's important that the system is designed, installed, commissioned and validated to the right standard. But not only that, that the after-sales service, predictive and preventative maintenance is also in place to keep continuity of the system. So when we look at on the purified water system, on the right-hand side, you've got the points of use for the purified water system on the right-hand side. And what we're trying to achieve there is the treated water quality spec. So if we take, for example, USP, United States Pharmacopeia for purified water, we're looking at less than 1.3 microsiemens conductivity at 25 degrees. And we're looking at less than 500 ppb TOC. And microbially, we're looking at less than 100 CFU per mil. So the idea is that we need to be within that spec to manage the risk for the product. So if you have water that's out of spec, you have to throw the product away. So if we start on the left-hand side with the generation system, purified water generation system, in this particular case, we have a softening RO-EDI system, the Orion unit as we call it, and this is hot water sanitizable. So we mitigate and manage our microbial growth. And in terms of conductivity, we design it to produce water of less than 0.2 microsiemens going into the purified water tank. And should the purified water tank be full, i.e. no demand at points of use, then the water recirculates back within the system pre-RO. So it goes to the RO and CDI, keeping the water within spec, ready for when the purified water tank calls for more water. Then if we go into the storage tank and the distribution loop, in this particular case, this distribution loop is a hot water sanitizable distribution loop, hence the heating and cooling exchangers. The other option is to have an ozonated loop. So you continuously ozonate the tank and destruct the ozone before it gets to the points of use. During normal service, we try to keep the distribution loop below 20 degrees, around about 18 degrees, again, to help reduce any microbial growth within the loop. Also, we have a UV unit to manage any prevailing bugs or bacteria that may be in the system, to keep the whole system well within specification, so there's very little risk to the water not being equality at the points of use. And typically, if you have this sort of system, you may also on site, if you're doing manufacturing other things, is a clean steam generator on the bottom left hand side there. So this will take the purified water and produce clean steam for use via a manifold to things like autoclaves and washers maybe, and things like that on site. And then in addition to that, you may be producing some sort of vaccines or something like that. So you will have a water for injection still. This distillation shown here is a MED, a multi-effect distiller. So again, this will produce WFI water, and it'll probably produce it at a high temperature, so above 80 degrees, into the WFI water tank. And then again, similar to the purified water loop, you will have a distribution loop. But typically with a distiller, the distribution loop will run hot. So you don't need any cooling exchangers. You will just have a heat exchanger on the return line, and that just keeps the water above the loop temperature you desire, typically above 80 degrees. And according to the ISP guidelines, if we're running above 65 degrees continuously, then the system is considered to be self-sanitizing. So this is the complete compendial water system on site. Can we move to the next slide, Tia, please? Okay, so if we look at the generation system, and we have the Orion unit. This is a skid-mounted multi-technology system comprising of softening, reverse osmosis, and continuous electrodeionization as its core technologies. And this unit may be fully or partially hot water sanitized. RO EDI is always standard as being hot water sanitized, but the option is of having the softeners on the pre-treatment side also hot water sanitized as well. There are also an additional diverse range of options available, including pre and post UV light, ultraviolet light, ultrafiltration, should you wish to go down the route of cold WFI, degassing and filtration. In terms of flow range, these units are available from 0.5 meter cubed an hour up to 20 meter cubed an hour. We recently supplied a site in Australia for 3 Orion 20,000, so they're 20 meter cubed an hour each, producing a total of 60 meter cubed an hour. So we have a range of about 7 to 8 unit sizes within this product. In terms of global sales, we've sold over 350 units since 2002, when the Mark 1 unit was introduced. We're onto the Mark 3 unit now. So this is truly a robust and reliable product, which we have got a lot of experience on in terms of operation on site and producing purified water with these units. On the Mark 3 series, we have 3 different types of units, the C, E, and S series, as we call them. I'll probably go from right to left on here. So if we start with the C series, and I'll explain those on the following slides in a little bit more detail. This is a base unit, which has the core Orion technology of softening RO EDI. And in terms of a capital cost, this is probably the best in terms of capital cost. Then we have the E series, which has some sustainability features in terms of during recycle, when there's no demand in the purified water tank, we reduce the water going down to drain at that point there, and I'll explain that, as I say, in the following slides. And then we have the S series, which has all the features of the E series, but the addition of a recovery RO and RO concentrate pump as well. So if we move on to the first flow schematic. So this is the Orion C series, the base unit, which incorporates all of our core technologies. So starting from the left, from the water inlet. And just to remind you, and I'm sure you guys know, that for any purified water system installed, the feed water has to be potable water as per the guidelines. So it has to be drinking water for that particular country, or at least it has to be the WHO standards in terms of feed water. So we go through a set of softeners in series, and from the softeners it goes through a 5 micron filter and then into what we call a multi-purpose tank, like a brake tank. From the brake tank, the water is repressurized through the RO units, and then the RO unit feeds the CEDI, which brings down the final conductivity less than 0.2. Then we go off to the three-way valve, which is positioned on top of the purified water tank, and then it either fills the tank. If the tank is full, it recycles back into the multi-purpose tank. As we say, it's a multi-purpose tank. It also houses the heating element, which could be electrical or steam for hot water sanitization. So we can sanitize the RO, EDI right up to the three-way valve sitting on the top of the purified water tank and back into the tank again. So that's the cycle for hot water sanitizing. And as you can see, there's a number of sensors around the system. During hot water sanitization, we map the heat element of it. So the temperature sensor, as we can see there at the bottom of the multi-purpose tank. There's a temperature element on the outlet of the CDI combined with the conductivity cell, and on the return line there as well, there's a temperature sensor. So it's a 3 mapping point in terms of hot water sanitization on these units. And they all have to reach above 80 degrees before we start the clock for holding the temperature above 80 degrees for 1 hour before we start cooling down again. And that can be mapped and it can be recorded as well, and inserted in your validation documents for any audit or things like that as well for future use. So it is a complete system, and in comparison to chemical sanitization, we know that heat is much better in terms that it's much more searching. It gets to all the parts of the system. As we say, with these sensors in place, you can map that hot water sanitization cycle, and we can do these cycles, up to once a week, where traditionally chemical sanitization was possibly done maybe every 3, 6, or once a year maybe. And you don't need any additional skids for chemical sanitizing. It's all done within the skid of the Orion unit. Moving on to the E series here, this also shows a number of options which are available for the Orion units, and those are things like sodium metabisulfite dosing between the softening and the 5-micron filter for free chlorine removal. After the 5-micron filter is an option for a UV, should you wish to manage microbial growth at the front end there for the multi-purpose tank. And if we go further down after the RO, we have the option of a degassing membrane between the RO and the EDI. And this is there to remove any prevailing CO2, depending what's in your raw water, to protect the CDI unit. And then after the CDI unit, there's 2 options of either a UV or a UF, and the UF for cold WFI to remove any prevailing endotoxins. And then you again go up and fill the purified water tank via the 3-way valve at the top there. Now, one of the key features on the E-Series in terms of sustainability is this cooling exchanger you can see on the concentrate return line. What normally happens, I mean, if, for example, you're running a 2-shift pattern of 8 hours in terms of production, so for 16 hours a day, the unit is running to service, then for 8 hours a day overnight, it may be running in recycle mode. And traditionally, we would throw water down the drain in terms of RO reject, mainly due to keeping the temperature within the system down to stop any conditions for microbial growth. And that temperature input is from the high pressure pump of the RO. So what we do is stick a cooling exchanger in there. So when the system is in optimum recycle mode, we don't throw any water down the drain, and we recover all of it, and we manage the temperature using the cooling exchanger. And during this recycle phase, also the conductivity is continuously measured, so we're not out of spec. So should the purified water call for any water, and there is demand, then we're within specification to fill the tank. So this manages any water being thrown down the drain for an 8-hour period during recycle. The other thing we do with the current unit, which is the Mark III, is traditionally when we were in recycle, we would run at full flow. So if this was a 4 meter cubed an hour unit, we'd be running at 4 meter cubed an hour during that 8-hour recycle period. What we do now is drop the flow approximately down to about 2 meter cubed an hour using a variable speed drive on the high pressure pump. And this also saves electrical energy. So there's 2 areas there where we try to tick a few boxes on the sustainability front A is in the water footprint and B is on electrical energy. So that's the E series. If we move on to the S series, so this is the full sustainability model. So it incorporates all those good things on the E series of the cooling exchanger for reduced water during recycle, and we drop the flow during recycle. But during the service run, this has the additional RO membrane, as you can see on the bottom there. So this is a recovery RO membrane. And this takes the concentrate from the main RO, and we put it through the recovery RO there, and the permeate then goes back into the multi-purpose tank to go through the system again. This recovery RO will reduce water to drain during the service run by 50%. So if we assume during those 16 hours you're running to service, you won't be throwing away as much water as you would have done previously. It'd be reduced by half. So again, saving on the water footprint. And also, as you can see, after the on the RO concentrate line, we have an RO concentrate recovery, which recovers some of the energy which we feed back in front of the RO. So there's an RO concentrate pump right at the bottom there.
Yep, thanks Ranj for introduction of our Orion technologies to our audience. And now we move on to the WFI and clean steam generation system and an alternative. Before that, I'd like to make a comparison of the major pharmacopeias around the world, which consists of USP, United States Pharmacopeia, EP, European Pharmacopeia, Japanese Pharmacopeia, Chinese Pharmacopeia, and Indian Pharmacopeias. And as mentioned by Ranj earlier, the source of water to feed into the purified water or WFI should be at least WHO standards, or in others pharmacopeias, they stated either human consumptions, JP water specification, potable water or purified water for China Pharmacopeia, and for Indian Pharmacopeia should be potable or purified water in order to generate the WFI. As you know here, the only differentiation is in order to generate WFI for Chinese Pharmacopeia, we still require distillations or hot processes as a prerequisite to generate WFI. And we evaluate the cost and the microbiological quality against these three WFI generation technique. Let's start with the multi-effect distiller. We have the cost, which is very high in OPEX, but very medium in CAPEX as well. And we have a very low microbiological count. However, the MED require a purified water grade as a feeding source, as well as a larger footprint for heat recovery. When we move into the VC, or we call it vapor compression distiller, the cost itself, you will have a medium OPEX, but relatively high CAPEX compared to MED or dual membrane systems. From the microbiological quality perspective, it's medium high because we need to do certain maintenance on the compressor itself. And if the system is being break, in order to do the maintenance of the compressor, the moving part itself or the system breaking will introduce the airborne bacteria into it. And this is why normally a sanitization of the system is required post preventive maintenance. As you know, the risk of the endotoxin will be an uptrend if the pre-treatment process is being upset, right? For the third of dual membrane system, is relatively low OPEX, low CAPEX, and I'd like to let Ranj to continue with these comparisons of the dual membrane system. Ranj?
Yeah, the dual membrane system, when we talk about dual membrane systems, they're talking about sort of RO, EDI, UF. So you have the RO and the UF as a double membrane barrier, and the UF is there to reduce the endotoxins to meet the requirement spec. And as I explained in the schematics previously, for instance, on the Orion unit, we have the UF there for this specific purpose here. And historically, ROs were perceived a risk because prior to hot water sanitizable membranes, we had to chemically clean them and they were cold systems. And there was a high risk of biofilm buildup on the RO membranes. But with regular hot water sanitization, we know that's not the case anymore, and the microbial growth is well managed. So we're using heat to remove that risk. And you know, this change in regulation happened back in 2017 for the European Pharmacopeia, where they were, like the Chinese, were insistent on having a distillation system, but they relaxed that to have the twin membrane system, whereas the Japanese Pharmacopeia and the US Pharmacopeia already allowed an alternative to distillation. So that was a big change in recent years on terms of the regulations. And in terms of products, as I say, the Orion's been around since 2002, where we offered the UF on the Orion units for producing what was called highly purified water in accordance to the European Pharmacopeia, which was the same spec as the WFI water. So the technology is not new, and it's not new that we've been doing for years. We've probably sold over 50 units globally with RO, EDI, UF on those, which are producing what was the old highly purified spec, which is currently the WFI spec for water. Okay, this graph that is on screen now is looking at the cost per meter cubed of WFI generation with different techniques. So you have MED, multi-effect distillation, VCD, vapor compression distillers, and Orion, which is the ROEDI UF. And as you can see, in terms of the cost, the Orion is the cheapest. And typically, you're looking at sort of 17. Sorry, can you go back a slide, Tio? That's typically you can get a reduction of about $17 per meter cubed of savings on these things. And the biggest cost saving between, shall we say, the Orion type system and the distillers is the distillers need steam. So for the MED, you typically need 6 to 8 bar industrial steam, and the more stages you have on an MED, the more efficient it becomes. So you can see there are 6-stage and a 4-stage unit in terms of OPEX efficiencies. So that's what those units need, and the reason you need steam is because you need the phase change from water to steam, and then you condense that to produce WFI water. So there's a lot of energy needed to take it from that phase change from water to steam. So that's where your costs are involved in that. On the VCD, it uses steam as well, but it can use 3-bar steam in conjunction with a compressor on the unit, which uses quite a lot of electricity, to be fair. That's where your utility costs are on a VCD. Okay, can we go to the next slide? And here we're just showing the energy saving. So it's electrical energy saving in terms of CO2. So again, the Orion, you have the high pressure pump, and the EDI using the electricity, where again on the VCD and the MED, it's all the power you need to produce the steam. And also in particular for the VCD, it's also the power you need for the compressor as well, which is quite a large unit. Okay, and here we have the comparison between the 3 units in terms of hot water sanitization, low steam pressure, which obviously the Polaris MED can't allow. I mean, the 3 technologies are available, and we would guarantee quantity and quality of water from all 3. So it all really comes down to risks perceived by you, the customer, the OPEX, the amount of steam availability on site, and how important energy saving is. So all 3 have their merits, and all 3 have some of their concerns as well. But what we can say from all 3, as I say, we can guarantee quantity and quality of water to WFI specification. So there are alternatives to the traditional distillation units.
All right, thanks, Ranj. And now we move to the last topic of discussion today, which is the digitalizations and Pharma 4.0. And where are we now in this era, or the post-pandemic era? We started Pharma 1.0 with the manual processing methods and moved into the Pharma 2.0 for batch processing. And we are now in between Pharma 3.0 and 4.0, which is we have continuous manufacturing processes, and we focus on process intensifications. For Pharma 4.0, we will focus on intelligence manufacturing. And this translates to a fully digitalized, transparent, and continuous improvement for processes. And how Veolia will help our customer, or you, to translate from Pharma 3.0 to Pharma 4.0 Firstly, we'll introduce ourselves with the smart technology for chemical dosing and monitoring for water utility system. We have our Hydrex controller 5C, which is used for chemical dosing and monitoring for our cooling tower, boiler, and chill water loops. With AquaVista 5C, we are able to connect it remotely to any smart devices. And with this platform itself, we are able to control the optimum design parameter, collect the operation data offsite, calculate the corrective action, and execute the corrective action as well. And one of the examples that we quoted from China is the improvement of the cycle of concentration in our cooling tower. With the Hydrex controller 5C installed, we are able to increase up to 15% of COC, which is we are actually trying to reduce up to 15% of the water discharged from the cooling tower to the sewer. And customer is very satisfied with the Hydrex controller itself and continue to contract with us for the following years. The next platform that we're talking about is actually AquaVista Digital Service. And for this platform, we integrate it with our standard solutions such as Orion. And again, Ranj will give us a further insight of what AquaVista is and how it benefits you.
Thank you. AquaVista is a cloud-based portal used for holding information, documents, drawings, service reports, and also doing some real-time system monitoring as well. It's a secure portal for your own dashboard, which is configurable like apps. So it depends on what your KPIs are. And if we just look at the screen here, you know, we have a number of things it can do. We have an overall view of all sites. So if you have multiple systems or multiple sites, you can check each site from that portal, and it allows you to maybe benchmark one system to another one. So for instance, if you have 5 sites with 5 Orion units on there, if 4 of them are quite efficient and working very well, and the 5th one isn't working so well compared to the other 4, then maybe there can be some investigation done into that 5th unit, and it could be something to do with pre-treatment, or maybe the water has changed, and maybe you need to do some additional processes to bring it up to the same optimum efficiencies as the other units. So it allows you to look at any system if you have multiple units on that site. It also houses things like all the service visits and history of service visits on site, so you can view those instantaneously. When the service engineers done their reports, they can upload it onto the system straight away. So all your history is kept on that system. Also spares, parts, consumables can also be, part numbers for those things can be kept on the system. And depending on whether the particular BU has any e-commerce, you can also, in certain cases, certainly in some of the European countries, you can order service and spares through the system as well, through the portal as well. You can view the overall service and maintenance contracts. You know when the renewal dates are. You can also go into a calendar on there and program in some of the visits of when you would like them, when the next one's due, etc. A little bit like your car, when the maintenance light comes into your car, you can go into a website and book in your car for a service. It's the same sort of idea as that. Moving on to some of the trending we can do on these units. As you can see there's some trending graphs here. I think this, by the looks of it, is it looks like a industrial RO unit because you can see the permeate conductivity there, sort of round about between 75 to 100 microsiemens by the looks of it, because the feed water on the right-hand side is almost above 15,000. And the reason you probably see the lines going up and down is probably a start-stop system, I would imagine. And that's where those lines are coming. But again, these are configurable trends depending on the type of system you have on the unit. And if we take, for example, an Orion unit, these are some of the KPIs that can be set up, things like the RO flux rate for preventative maintenance. So if the flux rate reaches a certain alarm point, you know, a warning comes up saying that it'd be a good idea to organize a chemical clean on the RO before it fails. So again, it's just like the maintenance light in your car. So when that comes on, it says, you know, you may have 1,000 kilometers left before you need to do your service. You can book that in before it comes to that point of those 1,000 kilometers getting down to zero. So it's the same sort of principle. And the RO flux is probably one of the biggest things you have to worry about on a RO CDI system. Other things you can measure are things like water rejection to drain. Make sure the flow rate is what you require. So if it's a 4 meter cubed an hour system, you're producing 4 meter cubed an hour consistently. Also, all the quality of water, so the sampling regime can be also trended on the system. So water quality in terms of conductivity. If you have a TOC monitor, the TOC can also be trended within this system. And also, if you have a hardness monitor as an option, that can also be trended on this system. We've put microbial count on there as well. Even if this, and it will be on every site, you're doing this manually, where you're taking samples and sending them up to a lab. When the results come back in, you can manually enter those results into the system, so you can get a trend on your microbial count as well. And if there are any alarm bells that start ringing there, or the trend is creeping slightly, we can do some more investigation work as part of the preventative maintenance on these units. And then finally, for sustainability, every company has sustainability targets. So the sustainability savings are put on screen, and these savings are for the E and the S series, and it compares those savings if you didn't have those sustainable features as per the C series, the entry level Orion. So it's a comparison to the entry level, because in order to show some savings, you must have a baseline. So the baseline will be that C series unit, where you don't have reduced water discharge to drain, and you don't have recovery RO water, RO membrane on the system either. So those are some of the KPIs. These are just some examples. We can work with the customers in order to include any others that they may wish. Okay, over to you again, Theo.
Yep, thanks, Raj. And there's one more thing before we end our presentations here. As we have introduced our Aquavista, our digitalization portal, we have our standard product presentations. We have our mobile water services introductions to the audience here as well. And there are one more things that we'd like to highlight to you, that combining all the solutions from Veolia that we offer to you to gather better insights for your investments. For example, some of the risk mitigations for transition of the technologies for your WFI operations. Take example, this is a standard pharma operation process when you look into from the water generation perspective. We have a pretreatment, purified water system here, multi-effect distillations to produce our WFI, storage tank with a recirculation loop and distribution loop. And part of WFI will be channeled to the steam generator to generate clean steam for autoclave as well as clean room moisturization processes. And what can we do to combine all our solutions to help you to translate to a new technologies? For example, if we deploy our mobile water solutions with Orion dual membrane system to generate cold WFI, we are able to provide on-site validations on this mobile solutions unit, as well as to make an apple-to-apple comparisons on your existing model in terms of the flow, in terms of the qualities, as well as the microbiological quality aspect. And when this solution is being verified and vet through by all the stakeholders within the organizations, we are able to replace your legacy system with a new state-of-art cold WFI generation technologies in your system. At the same time, while replacing the old legacy system, our mobile unit solutions or services are still able to top up WFI water, quality water to your productions as well. And what should we consider when we're converting our WFI generations technique from a legacy hot generations technique to a membrane system? In fact, there's seven steps available, but we have been summarized it into 4 steps here. At first, we have to notify the supervisory authority before the implementation. If your product is being exported to UK, we need to notify MHRA that we were converting our WFI generation technique from a hot to a cold one. And secondly, the concerns of the microbiological quality of the RO system to produce WFI is there. And we have to deploy a proper design element as well as a good sanitization strategy to control the biofilm growth as well as to maintain a good microbiological quality within the system. And number 3, we have to determine the tests that should be deployed during initial qualifications as well as for future the routine operation sampling. And number 4, we set the expectation for the preventive maintenance on our system used for production of WFI. And all these could be achieved with our Aqua Vista portal as well as our service maintenance contract review. So in conclusions, in order to deploy the right solutions for your businesses, we have a long-term view, the customer, to anticipate the needs of the regulators and local authorities of the wastewater treatment plant effluent as well. We are system thinking, we are the system designer, we are innovative, and we are agile to fit into your KPI that you need to achieve. And we are operator and engineer DNA inherited in our system to provide a continuous improvement for you and your customer. We will end the webinar sessions today. And thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, you still can reach out to us anytime or to your local sales representative, and we attend to your questions accordingly. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and good evening
Thank you very much.
to everybody. Bye.